When you're a Canadian kid and it's winter, you can always count on 3 things. Number 1, if you touch your tongue to a metal fence, it'll stick. And number 2, if there's a big snowstorm, they'll close your school. And number 3, if you write to Santa Claus, he'll write back. Ooh. So this year, while you're hoping for snow and avoiding cold fences, write to Santa Claus, North Pole, HOH, Canada. Include your return address and watch for your letter from Santa.
On an overcast day in December 1905, an anxious crowd gathers outside Toronto's Union Station. The children are cold, but it's worth the wait. Suddenly, the sound of bells fills the air and 100 heads turn. Santa Claus is in town, a guest of retailer Timothy Eaton. Santa leads the joyful crowd back to Eaton's Toyland. The event is such a success that Santa returns the following year. He becomes a regular highlight of the Toronto winter. A century after Santa's historic arrival at Union Station, this is what the parade has become. A moving party, 25 blocks long, with 24 motorized floats, 20 marching bands, and 1,500 marchers in costume. It's broadcast on television across North America and as far as Eastern Europe and Australia. Toronto's Santa Claus Parade is the oldest continuous children's parade in the world. It survived 2 world wars, the Great Depression, and a century of technological change. 2004 is the parade's 100th anniversary. In Santa's workshop, the floats are under construction year-round. They measure up to 40 feet in length, weigh 1.5 tons, and can take up to 3 months to finish. All that for one amazing day that seizes the imagination of millions. Some people have attended the parade every year for decades, but only Santa has been to all 100.
The 20th century arrived, and with it, a wave of immigrants, adventurers headed for the goldfields. Homesteaders settled on the prairies. And in Toronto, a young man who'd been round the world and back talked to his father about the potential of Canada's West.
By 1905, the T. Eaton Company has earned a reputation for quality merchandise at fair prices. With this solid foundation, Timothy and his son Jack opened stores across the country. Santa adds a few of these cities to his parade route. The immigrants keep coming, in waves, and the parade keeps pace, always adding new sights. In 1913, Santa arrived in Toronto on a sleigh drawn by 4 live reindeer. The animals are brought in from Labrador, not yet part of Canada. In its own small way, the parade helps to expand the country's imagination. Soldiers and their loved ones say their goodbyes at Union Station. But not even the outbreak of war stops the Santa Claus Parade. It is a welcome distraction for those left behind, and an outlet for their hopes and dreams. Children send their letters to Santa, some 15,000 of them, and he answers each one, as long as it has a return address. Canadian women take their place in the workforce and in national life. When the men return home, they see a dramatic change. Women have won the right to vote. The Santa Claus Parade changes too. Now several floats accompany Santa as he winds his way through Toronto's streets. Santa's destination is the T. Eaton Company, where he climbs a ladder right into Toyland. The idea is for the children to follow and for the parents to stay and shop. The ideal fusion of fantasy and commerce. It's the roaring 20s, and the economy is moving in high gear. The automobile is the symbol of progress and affluence. If you don't own one, you're missing out on the new industrial revolution. The Santa Claus Parade also takes on a new sophistication. Jack Eaton is determined that the parade will change with the times. But for that to happen, it will need more people. He recruits the entire Eaton's workforce, counter girls, stockroom staff, and the store managers who moonlight as parade marshals once a year. Jack even drives his Eaton's car in every parade until his death in 1922. His devotion is shared by many.
What I remember about the Santa Claus parade when I was very young was the barns on Deary Avenue and Bartlett, where they kept all the great big gray horses from Eaton's and the wagons. And that's where the parade started from. They brought the floats out very early in the morning before the parade got started. And we always run down there to look at them. He was always on a float, though. He was always the last one in the parade, sitting way up high there, you know, waving to all the children. It was always very, very nice. And we always looked forward to going to that parade. It was a real big day for us.
The parade leaves such an impression that Warren Labette, now in his mid-90s, can still recall the first one he attended in 1920.
We'd get a streetcar, which was 2 cents, and bring us downtown to University in Queen, where the parade would come down University. And one of the houses on the east side was where Mary Pickford was born.
Mary Pickford, the unchallenged queen of silent movies, foreshadows Santa's own rise to stardom. The site of Pickford's home would eventually become the location of Toronto's Sick Children's Hospital, one of the most important stops along the modern parade route. Jack Brocky takes over as head of Eaton Sales and Promotions in 1928. Under his guidance, the modern parade is born. Brocky increases the lineup to 8 floats and introduces Mother Goose and other nursery rhyme characters. He courts the local media and invites high school students and bands to take part in the parade. Everyone who participates gets hot chocolate and cookies at the parade's end. Brocky leads by example. Every year he makes a special point to walk the 5-mile route. His enthusiasm is contagious. The popularity of the parade soars. The children are so excited to see Santa that they run along beside his float. The next day, Brocky sits down with colleagues to analyze the parade. He studies slides taken by Eaton's photographer Harold Hundert. Brocky also keeps a workbook full of meticulous notes. He's a tireless parade man, also serving as consultant to the Winnipeg Santa Claus Parade. It runs for more than 60 years, but the cold winters at Portage, Maine eventually defeat the procession. Winnipeggers retreat into the warmth of their homes to watch the Toronto Parade on TV. Further west, Edmonton also welcomes Santa. Each parade is tailored for its region, but there's one constant across the country. Santa always leads the crowd back to the local Eatons, like a Pied Piper of retail. From Edmonton to Winnipeg to Toronto, the 20s are a prosperous time. The Eaton's catalog grows to nearly 600 pages, and many Canadians can afford to buy luxuries. The Toronto Parade indulges in a few luxuries of its own. In 1925, it showcases a float with 2 live polar bear cubs. That same year, Santa arrives on a train, a fitting image for a parade that began at Union Station 20 years ago. Most households now have a radio, and starting in the late 20s, local radio stations broadcast a startling winter odyssey: Santa's month-long trip from the North Pole to Toronto. 1929 heralds a bleak new era. Millions of people are without work during the Great Depression. Still, the parade goes on, providing a momentary escape.
It lifts you out of the realism of the problems you might have, or the negative inclinations. It's quite fulfilling and quite positive. You know, there's very little negative about Santa Claus or fantasies like that.
George and Lenore Ellis have not missed a single Santa Claus parade in almost 60 years, including the years they lived abroad. These days, they sit on the sidelines with their children and grandchildren. George tells them about 1938, the first year he marched in the parade.
Bert Monroe, next door, was running the Santa Claus parade, our neighbor, Santa Claus parade for the Eaton's Company. And he said to myself and my cousin, would you like a job? So we got $2.50. Went down, got up at 5 in the morning in Ronsonville and marched down past the Queen's Park and down onto University and into Eaton's. I had a wheelbarrow with a Christmas tree in it and Santa Claus's toque hat on top with a curl on the top of it.
Participants like George treasure their memories of marching in the parade and of the endless row of delighted faces lining the route.
I've always been a spectator. But it's quite thrilling because the crowds don't seem to change, like they don't seem to lessen that much. And sometimes it's a little harder to keep up with it now because you could watch it on television, it's easier. But if you go, you know you're part of it somehow, even if you're standing on the sidelines.
In 1942, George joins the Air Force and flies off to war. When he returns to Leonore 3 years later, the couple instantly reclaim their favorite viewing spot, across the street from the hospital for sick children. It's a constant during uncertain times. The world may have lost its innocence, but the parade has not.
If you go to see Santa Claus parade, you don't go to celebrate a military win. You go to see the clowns, you go to see the Mother Goose, people waving, and the whole atmosphere of Christmas. So the war wouldn't be the place to celebrate a win, in a parade like that. See, the parade lifts you out of that kind of thing. The war, the job, the firing, the hiring, and then the Santa Claus comes along with all the good things.
Santa has now been visiting Toronto for more than 40 years. By the time Newfoundland joins Canada in 1949, Santa is ready to take the parade around the world. During the 50s, film and television bring the parade an international audience. The work of Eaton's photographer, Harold Hundert, makes Santa a star. Hundert sets up 3 16mm cameras along the parade route. He edits the films and screens them for free at Toronto schools and churches. He also sells his films abroad. By the mid-1950s, some 60,000 letters a year are pouring in from around the world. Even those addressed to the North Pole are sent to Eaton's. Every letter with a return address receives a handwritten reply. Occasionally, when a letter mentions dire circumstances, Eaton's responds with vouchers or financial aid.
Hi, boys and girls. I'm Speedy, one of Santa's elves, and it's my job to sort out all the thousands of letters that are sent to Santa from boys and girls all over the world.
That's right, Mr. Elf, and we could hardly wait for all our friends to visit us at Eaton's and join in the Christmas fun.
For the first time in 1952, the parade is broadcast across Canada. CBS, one of the largest American TV networks, buys 15 minutes of the parade to air during American Thanksgiving. The U.S. version includes several other parades, most notably Macy's. But not even Macy's popularity can compete with the original that inspired it. Eaton's parade is so popular that American viewers demand the full show. CBS personalities make annual visits to Toronto in preparation for the U.S. broadcast. By now, the parade has grown to more than 20 floats and 800 costumed marchers. The floats are more sophisticated, mostly due to the ingenuity of Jim Carmichael. He joins Eaton's parade staff in 1950 and spends the next 33 years building a better show.
First thing I wanted to do right away was to change the whole structure of the floats. First thing I did was make them twice as wide. We added 4 feet on each side by putting sleeves into the float. Same with the height. We could go higher. We could go almost to 13 feet. On the way home and the way back to work, that's when I did most of my thinking and trying to create things. Anyway, I wanted to make a big elephant. And this elephant I hoped would walk down the street. We developed it all and put a wire frame, which was another new idea. We didn't use hardly any wood. It was mostly light wire, 1/4 inch, and we could shape it very easily. So this was a whole new idea of starting to sculpture these animals and these floats. Anyway, we got it working. We had the knees bending up and down, going down. We had the trunk moving, the head started to move. Before you know it, we went wild again, and we did everything that you could think of. And that was the first real big animal. But that animal became polar bears, skunks.
Carmichael and his team of sculptors and carpenters transformed the same frame into dozens of different characters.
So the main thing is that when you're surrounded by quality people, and this helps a lot, you're only as good as the people that are working for you.
The parade flourishes under Jim Carmichael. Among the animated floats lining the route, Santa's is the most spectacular, pulled by a team of bobbing reindeer. The parade is so successful, traffic officials limit the length of the parade to ensure it moves past any given point within 20 minutes. Security is brought in to keep the crowd safe and the parade moving.
I'm telling you, we've seen it 15 deep, people deep in areas on each side, people trying to see the parade. And they came early because the parade used to start at 8 o'clock in the morning. So all of these kids and parents would come and grab their seats. This is the main thing. You get on the street and the main thing right there is all these little kids oohing and ahhing. You know, it was a fabulous job. I'm telling you, it really was. And the group of people that worked with me, you know, very enjoyable. I remember every one of them. Well, Marg Morris, we must have spent most of her life in Eaton's on the costume area. I think she had about 4 or 5 seamstresses, but they did a fantastic job, these 4 or 5 women. And their big day was the day of the parade, the night of the day of parade. They would be there at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
It's not just Jim and the costume staff who contribute to the parade's success.
Doug Lappin came in. Doug was quite young. He was very good as a boss. Doug was pretty good. And as I say, we still had a free hand.
My role in the parade began in 1965 when I joined Eaton's Public Relations Department. And in 1977, I took over the overall production of the parade. The process that we followed for the parade happened right after the last parade. We would sit down and have a postmortem. We would look at things that worked, things that didn't work, costumes that we liked, that we didn't like, floats that we thought needed some help if we were ever to use them again. We were very thorough in that postmortem process. And from there, we started to build the next year's parade. So that was a year-long process. And it was a most enjoyable process because everybody got along so well. The most important part of the parade for me was making sure that it came off properly, so that the spectacle was viewed by so many people on the streets and on television enjoyed what we had put our heart and soul in for the entire year.
When the parade is finished, the floats are brought into the train yard.
And they were loaded on flatbed trains and cars, and they were encased and then with canvas and so on, completely covered. Within the span of a week, the parade would be held on one Saturday, and the following Saturday it would be held in Montreal. Full-blown Santa Claus parade.
The only floats that don't make the trip are Mother Goose, she's just too big to fit on the train, and Santa's Sleigh, which is created locally by a Montreal artist.
Unfortunately, the parade in Montreal came to an end as a result of the political crisis, the FLQ crisis in Quebec, when a bomb went off in an Eaton store. And there were threats and so on, naturally, around the parade.
It was too dangerous for Eaton, so we canceled it right there, and we never did go back.
After more than 40 years, the Montreal Parade is over. In Toronto, a dedicated staff and new talent see the parade into the future.
The Board of Education was looking for people to take students in, you know, in the summer help, whatnot. So I had quite a few, but one of them in particular struck me, and that was Alfred Iannarelli. Alfred became the youngest member of that group, and I started training him because I figured the day I go, Alfred would have been the logical one.
Jim taught me everything I know about parades. When he took me on as a summer student, he saw something in me and gave me rather challenging jobs right at the very beginning, sculpting bear heads and making floats right from the top. Instead of working my way slowly into it, he encouraged me to go for it. He believed in me, and it showed, and it paid off.
Alf, Jim, and the rest of the creative team are limited by little more than gravity.
We would brainstorm. That's how the ideas would come. We would think about, okay, well, what haven't we done before? Have we, you know, we've never had a chicken going down the street laying eggs. Well, okay, how do we do that? How big will it be? And we'd talk about it. And then I'd throw some ideas together on paper and show them, well, if you have it so big, and maybe we can have the egg, but then, oh, it would roll down the street. How do we control that, you know? You think of all the logistical parts of it and put it together, and most of the time it would work. Once we had the design, to make it into a float was very simple, because we would then hand it to the craftsmen, the artists, the sculptors, Alex Koziks, Carl Berzins. They had been building floats for years and years. So they would be able to intuitively, as the people can today, look at a sketch in black and white and turn it into a three-dimensional mold in their own mind. There would be no blueprints. They would just look at it and go, okay, I know how to do this, and start building.
And when the floats are finally ready, the year of hard work pays off.
It's extremely rewarding to put the parade down the street and see the reaction of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. They're up on rooftops. They're in trees. They're 15, 16 deep on the sidewalks. We get the biggest crowd of any event in the city of Toronto year after year after year after year. They come back because of that magic. I come back because of that magic. We all do.
Unfortunately for Eatons, not even the parade's magic can stop an economic recession. The parade witnessed decades of national milestones. It welcomed the Queen during her 1953 coronation, and it waved the maple leaf when Canada got its own national flag in 1965. But when the 80s brought financial hardship, Eatons was forced to cancel the parade.
One of the sad things about being involved in the Santa Claus parade naturally was the end, but unfortunately it had to come, and it came in 1982. And I haven't talked about this very much, but I'm afraid I was the person who started the ball rolling as far as the end of the Santa Claus parade was concerned. In the summer of '82, we were asked by the higher-ups at Eatons whether or not there were some opportunities to cut expenses.
Eatons decided that it was costing too much, and they decided to cancel it.
Eatons had single-handedly sponsored the Santa Claus parade for 77 years. But hard economic times in the early 80s forced the retailer to lay off 500 employees across the country, including those who built the parade.
It was my job to then go out to the parade building and sit down with the folks there and inform them of the news. That was not a happy time.
I remember those days at the end of the Eaton sponsorship very clearly. I was just coming back from holidays. It was August in 1982. And it was a Monday morning. Report to work on a normal day, and Jim Carmichael said to me, Doug Laffin's coming up to see us. He has something to tell us. He wants to have a little bit of a meeting with us. And okay, that's fine, that's great. The parade was well underway. It was about 80% finished. And at exactly 10 o'clock, Doug arrived, called us into a room. At exactly the same time that the other people, I guess it was the Eatons themselves, had a press conference on announcing the end of the parade.
The Eaton Company is not going to be involved in the Santa Claus Parade.
So it was announced to us at exactly the same time as it was announced to the public. And we thought, oh well, it's been a great run. It's been terrific. We were really sad to see it go. But we knew that the decision was final, and we were shocked. We were surprised. We didn't expect it. But I guess after a day or so, we became very philosophical about it. And what can you do? It's been a great parade. We had nothing but great memories about it, and that was that. And then about 2 days later, we were still asked to stay on for a couple of weeks just to while they wrapped it all up. So we were all still reporting to work. And it was a day or so after we heard the rumors that there was a team of people who were trying to save the parade, and that the city was in an uproar. And
when Fred Eaton went public with the bad news in August of 1982, Torontonians were outraged. It was as if Eaton's had canceled Christmas. Shocked at the prospect of a Christmas without a parade, Toronto's Metro chairman Paul Godfrey and his assistant Ray Biggert went to work. The first two people Godfrey contacted were business and community leaders George Cohan and Ron Barbaro.
I was driving to an appointment, and on the car radio I heard that Paul Godfrey had announced that Eaton's had backed out of the Santa Claus Parade.
Paul had just gotten a call from the Eaton boys, and the Eatons had said that they could not continue to have the parade go on. They did a magnificent job. This parade's 100 years old. And so for 77 years or 78 years, they ran it. I mean, I used to go to this with my kids. And so to think the Santa Claus Parade, which started, now 100 years ago, wouldn't continue to exist, that couldn't be. Impossible.
I got to my appointment, I'd received a call from my assistant who had said, Paul Godfrey's looking for me. And he'd called George Cohan also, and we met down at his office, and he asked us, boys, you gotta help.
What Ron and I did initially is we just took some time off work, got a big pegboard and started to write the names of people that we think we should be calling to try to save this thing.
We made a list of all the major people we could get involved with rather quickly, and it was not as easy as we thought, because the recession had reached beyond the Eaton Corporation. Many people were having financial stresses, and we decided it cost $500,000 to run the parade. So how do we raise $500,000? Well, if we can get 20 corporate sponsors, good corporate citizens to put in $25,000 each, so we get 20 floats times that, and that gets us right near the amount that we require.
There's a cost to running this parade, a big cost. And so if we have to go to the company that I work for, McDonald's or Coca-Cola, the Royal Bank of Canada, or the myriad of people that have been in since day one, and say, well, let's put a sign up in front of a float and say that this float is brought to you by whatever the corporation is. I think that's fair game. I don't think that commercializes this parade in any way, shape, or form. And I think the average person watching it understands that and realizes that you can't operate in a vacuum. I mean, the streets of Toronto are just alive and magical that day. And people come out, and it doesn't cost them anything. You can come out and you can just have a really good time. And thanks to the individuals, the corporations, the volunteers. There are a lot of people that do all the work, and Ron and I tend to get all the credit. But the reality is there's a team of people. There's Peter Lebeth, there's Irv Ungerman, there's a board of directors with all sorts of people.
Well, I don't think we saved the parade. We just kept it going. The motor was running, we just had to get it back on the road.
We were thrilled. It was like a miracle.
Hello!
And then the parade left. Eaton's went down the street. We had a big float that said, "Thank you, Eaton's, for 77 years of wonderful parades."
The 1982 Santa Claus Parade was bittersweet. it was a new beginning, but it was also the end of an era. And for some, it was the end of a career. Jim Carmichael stayed on for the first parade under the new board of directors. Then, after 33 years, he passed the torch to his hand-picked successor, Alf Iannarelli.
And the parade has never really looked back. We thank Eaton's for all those great years ago. Of course, without them, we wouldn't be here. But then the parade started going to different directions. It's been fantastic. It's really been a wonderful 20 years.
The new board of directors retained the impressive floats and costume marchers. It also created some new traditions.
Hold it! Hold it! Hold it! Hold it! Hold it! Hold it! I want to talk to some of these clowns. What's it like being a clown?
We love it! We love it!
We've lost control down here.
Let's throw this at it. What do you think? 1, 2, 3.
Now, I found out that at midnight, Alfie and the whole team, they snake the parade down through the city, down to the starting point at the pits, at Christie Pits. So I got there about 11:30, just to get in and share the excitement. I looked over on the left, and here were golf carts with Norman's name, George's name, my name on it, and I thought, I'm not going to ride in the parade with my name on it and just looking pretty. I just couldn't understand how to do that. And I noticed that the tractors that pulled the floats, all the drivers had a clown costume. So I said to Alfie, I said, give me a couple of these, the clown costumes.
So Ron and I ran into the school. There was a public school where they had all the costumes. And we put on a couple of, clown costumes and a red nose and a wig or something. And we started out, marching in the parade. And then we got some toilet paper.
We have to give out something. I mean, one beautiful part about a parade, every 10 feet is a new audience. So if you have one good line, you could go through the whole 5 miles. So George, he really bought into it, and I said, but we got to give away something. So I went into the washroom, and there was some toilet paper, and I decided to take all the toilet paper. Well, our line would be, Santa likes a clean nose.
And always gets a laugh, It was very childish, but it worked.
At the end of the parade, Norman and I, we just hugged each other and said, well, this is probably the most fun we've ever had in our whole lives. So all through the winter, I kept telling people what I'd done, and they said, I would like to do this.
The next year, George dressed up, and then it started. And we thought, well, if we could get a few guys together, I'm sure they would enjoy this experience of contact with all these kids.
We call them celebrity clowns, and we were the greeters, just what Norman and I had done. And now it's our largest source of sort of non-effort revenue.
Celebrity clowns are a group of business and community leaders who donate $1,000 each to dress up as clowns and lead the parade. Not only do they help support the event, they also warm up the crowd for Santa. Ross Johnson organizes the group.
I became a celebrity clown in 1991. Best thing I ever did. Then when I suffered statutory senility at 65, 10 years ago, I went to Ron and to George Cohan and said, look, I'd like to take over the celebrity clown. What's happening now, we are getting second-generation clowns. And I believe this year we'll have our first third-generation clown, the grandfather, the father, and the grandson. And I tell them when they become celebrity clowns, because we have a screening process, I tell them, look, this isn't just for 1 year. The only way out is you got to die or be transferred. So we have a large number of celebrity clowns become celebrity clowns the next year. I've always had a waiting list of people who want to be celebrity clowns.
I'm a celebrity clown, and this will be like, it's my 7th year, and it's sort of a special sort of day. I just really look forward to it. And all the kids are just fabulous that line the streets. I mean, well, I grew up in Toronto, so I was one of those kids, and I remember that clear as a bell. I remember being like 3 years old, and you thought that the people in the parade were just like the most magical people on earth, and I guess I always wanted to be one.
Through the celebrity clowns, Santa continues to work his magic, drawing out the child in everyone.
The day of the Santa Claus parade is the best day of the year because I get to do whatever I want and nobody knows who I am. And I dance with all the lady policemen and I hug all the big male policemen. Our job is to make the crowd ready for Santa Claus when he comes. We get them feeling good about the day itself.
I love walking the parade route. I love having fun with the people. I have a thing that is so corny. Years ago, I got a pail and it has streamers in it. And it looks like a pail of water. So for the last, 15, 20 years, I'd go up to a little child and I'd say, have you had a bath today? And they'd say, why? And I'd say, well, did you have a bath? Tell the truth. And they'd say, no. And I'd say, it was time you had a bath. And they think I'm throwing out water, but it's actually streamers that come out. Another thing that I love is going to the hospitals. We try to get into sick kids to see children that aren't as fortunate and cheer them up. And that's another special part of the day for me. But the most fun is just in rain or shine or snow or sleet or sunshine. Everyone's smiling, everyone's having a good time.
Well, the first 20 clowns dressed got to go over to Sick Kids Hospital, and that's probably the most heart-wrenching tour you'll ever do in your life. But it's a great leveler of life to understand what the parade is all about, to see some of the kids when the clowns would hit the floor and they would just be so excited.
What? Well, that's the way it's supposed to be!
We got to keep reminding ourselves it's for the kids, even though we have as much fun, if not more, as same. And you just have to walk the parade once. Imagine being involved in something like that, and then the reward that you get, personal satisfaction. It's marvelous.
I think that there's a sort of a mystical feeling about the parade. It sort of kicks off the holiday season. And I love to, at the end of the parade, not go up and sort of get a hot chocolate and a snack. I love to stand on the street and wait till the last road goes by and thank the volunteers.
You strive to make everything you can a better place than when you got there. Community, from that standpoint, it means everything to me. I can't think of anything more rewarding than being involved in a community event, volunteerism. Volunteerism is how you're measured.
So what I really like about this is we're giving something back, and it makes Canada a great place to be. I keep running into men and women who have worked for 20, 30, 40, 50 years on this parade. And isn't it wonderful that a community like Toronto gets together? And this parade is seen in other parts of the world. And so it's a part of our heritage and our history, and it's fun.
Santa has watched Toronto grow from a community of just over 200,000 to a city 10 times that size. His annual visit to Toronto is a global event, broadcast in countries all over the world by Global Television Network.
Welcome back our Operation Santa Claus stations. Welcome to Canada and enjoy the parade.
It's as if the parade's survival over the last century was somehow orchestrated by the jolly old man in red.
He's very involved in this parade. He's just not up there making toys, and he's also got one eye on this parade. And every so often he'll call me up. He's got a magic telephone up there, he really does. And he'll call me up and he'll say, Alfie, I had a great idea for a float. What do you think if we do this, and we could make the reindeer silver and we can do this and that. Do you think the kids would like it? And I'll go, oh yeah, Santa? So wonderful. He always comes up with great ideas. But he's a bit of a worrier because he wants to be so perfect. But on the other hand, he's just the greatest boss in the world to work for. I wouldn't work for anyone else.
Over the past century, the Santa Claus Parade has witnessed the shaping of a country. While Santa prepared for his annual visits, Canadians honored our veterans' return from Vimy Ridge and Passchendaele, welcomed the beginning of universal health care, cheered on Terry Fox during his Marathon of Hope, and celebrated the creation of Nunavut.
To go through World War I, the Depression, World War II, to go through all these things and have this parade constant is pretty special, because generation to generation look forward to it. I've met people. I was in a cab the other day, and I started to chat with him, and he told me a story about how for the last 40 or 50 years, when he was a young boy growing up, they went to a certain corner. And then, you know, he had his children, and they went to that same corner. Now he has grandchildren. They all go to the same corner.
Generations of spectators have inherited their place in the Santa Claus Parade, creating memories that reach back to their youngest years.
I think when I see the parade, it just reminds me of my childhood when I was young and how I see it through the eyes of a child. And when I look at my granddaughter, and it just takes me back. I was an Eaton's junior counselor back in 1957. Part of our duties as Eaton's reps were to provide Eaton's with the names of 10 students that we thought would like to be in the Santa Claus Parade. I was a star lady, and I carried a large silver star, if I remember correctly, on a stick. My biggest memory was smiling, just smiling, 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 and by the end of the parade, I had a frozen smile, but it was great. When I heard about the 100th anniversary of the Santa Claus Parade, and I started looking through my pictures and brought back a lot of memories. It's just a great parade. It's just as great today as it was back then from what I remember, and it's a family day.
Children of all ages are drawn to the magic of the parade.
My first memory of the Santa Claus Parade would probably have to be when I was about 5 years old. My parents brought me down to Toronto with my best friend Matthew, and I can just remember like being really short and not being able to see over everyone. So my dad brought me on his shoulders, and I remember all the people going by and everyone cheering and waving, and I was waving at everyone too, people I didn't know and stuff. And I just thought it was magical. I really loved Christmas time.
I remember going to the parade probably when I was 8 or 9 or 10. And the great event was you had to wait for Santa Claus. But probably the toughest part of your first few parades is waiting on the curb in the snow, because the parade, whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour away, it always seemed to be, when is it going to come?
Santa is something of a superhero with an all-ages fan club. Bob Layden is a lifetime member.
My grandchildren are now involved, as well as my wife and my daughter. So there's 3 generations involved in the parade. It is very rewarding. In fact, I guess a lot of times you get tears in your eyes because when you're in the parade and no one's in the crowd, they're unhappy. Everybody's happy. Everybody's screaming Merry Christmas and waving and hollering. It's just a great, great, great feeling. It makes Christmas.
The parade's appeal is ageless and timeless.
That's why we have record crowds come out year after year after year, because it's an experience for them that they can all relate to. It's not like, oh my goodness, I've got to take my kids to see the parade and, you know, I'm just going to sit there and, you know. It doesn't work that way. They're all clapping, they're all excited, they're all watching the same event. The parents are carrying the kids on their shoulders and they're dancing when the bands come by and they're pointing to what's coming next, and they're all in it. They're all part of the experience. We're constantly growing, we're constantly building. We always say, this is the biggest and best parade we've ever done. And it sounds like publicity, but it's not. We really mean it. We want people to look forward to the next one. And the only way that we can do that is continually surprise them and improve on it and make it better.
12 to 15 new floats are created every year, many of them inspired by popular culture.
Everyone relates to Mother Goose and nursery rhymes, but they also equally relate to Harry Potter. So we have to stay current. We can't leave the present behind, but we also can't leave the past behind either. So it's a balancing act.
That past has included Mother Goose for all but one of the last 100 years.
The first year there was only Santa. But since then, she has always been in the parade. We had a Mother Goose that was flying in the air, and when her wings went up, they were about 18 feet in the air. Now, in 1992, in the 125th birthday of Canada, we made a Mother Goose that was a Canada Goose. So the Mother Goose float was a Canada Goose, and Mother Goose herself was riding a big Canada Goose. What we've done this year is we've reproduced a goose design from 1959. I'm sure a lot of them will say, I remember that goose. That's right. That's what it looked when they were younger. We want to bring a little bit of the history back into the parade.
To honor the last 100 years, Canada Post is releasing a set of commemorative stamps. The Santa Claus Parade is a living history with no end in sight.
I think it lasted 100 years, and I think it's for the same reason it's going to last another 200 or 300, 400 years, is because it's an uplifting theme. I don't think anybody likes to grow up. I think they like to just be happy, and you can do that with Santa Claus. So that's why I think it's going to go on for. Hard to project the future, but I'd say, I'll guess it's going to go on forever.
Ho, 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 ho!
Claus. And we're here to say you should write him, cuz. And without delay. For every letter he gets, you know he always writes back. He gets 1 million a year. Kids' letters. By the sack. So write to Santa. North Pole. H-O-H-O-H-O. Write to Santa. Include your address. And look in your mailbox. Cuz he'll send you his best. H-O-H-O-H-O. La 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 ho ho ho.
When you're a Canadian kid and it's winter, you can always count on 3 things. Number 1, if you touch your tongue to a metal fence, it'll stick. And number 2, if there's a big snowstorm, they'll close your school. And number 3, if you write to Santa Claus, he'll write back. Ooh. So this year, while you're hoping for snow and avoiding cold fences, write to Santa Claus, North Pole, HOH, Canada. Include your return address and watch for your letter from Santa.
In May of 2000, my grandson Michael was diagnosed with neuroblastoma cancer and just went from a healthy, vibrant young child to a very sick little boy.
Gabrielle was born without a fully developed left ventricle. So essentially her body was needing oxygen that she couldn't get.
My daughter, Chrissy, had open heart surgery at 14 months. At 18 months, a kidney operation, and again at 28 months, another open heart surgery where we thought we were going to lose her.
Megan was diagnosed 3 days before Christmas with an inoperable brain tumor, brain stem glioma.
In a few short months, Michael had chemotherapy, radiation, and blood marrow transplant. It was determined that in his 30-pound body, there was about 7 pounds of tumors.
Gabrielle was 16 months old when we realized she had to have the transplant. There were actually several times when I thought I'd lose her.
Prognosis was not very good, at best a 1 in 10 chance of survival.
I knew that where Megan was diagnosed and was going to be treated, that she was in the best hands and in the best pediatric hospital, in my mind, anywhere in the world.
There's no question in our heart, Chrissy would not be here. She would be nothing but a blessed memory if it wasn't for the miraculous work, the miracle work of the people of Sick Kids.
The doctors and the nursing staff at Sick Kids are so amazing. I believe that Gabrielle wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Sick Kids.
We could not have gone to a more compassionate, devoted, loving team than the doctors and nurses who looked after Megan and our family while we were at the hospital.
Happy birthday!
I never really knew if Gabrielle would make it to 5 years old, and I hope to see Gabrielle blow out many more candles on her birthday cakes.
Yay!
The work that Sick Kids is doing for Michael and for kids like Michael, it's world class, and it's absolutely essential that we support them.
Love you, Grandpa.
There's no gift that I will ever be able to give them to thank them enough for their endless and steadfast love and commitment to our family.
Michael is certainly one of the most important things in my life. He's very, very special. He has a knowledge and an understanding of life that is really amazing. And I always say that when I grow up, I want to be just like Michael.
Sick Kids was right here. I had the best doctors, I had the best nurses, I had caring people. I can't comprehend a world without Sick Kids. I believe I was put on earth with a special mission to look after a little girl, and through Sick Kids, I've been able to do it.